And now to speak to us about the divine feminine, one of the most divine feminines that I know, unveiling the divine feminine in the science of mind. She is a member of the center. She is my cousin. I'm just delighted that she's here tonight to speak with us. Please welcome Lisa McClure.
Okay. Hello. So I do feel like I need a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a minister and I'm not a practitioner, so you're just kind of getting my point of view. Okay, I just got that out of the way. How this happened is that I belong to the women's circle, and we meet the first Friday of every month in the sanctuary. And this time I got assigned to bring what we were going to discuss, and it was May. And so Mother's Day was in May, so it kind of grew out of there. And I thought I was going to do something more on just mothers. But in the meantime, I had been, I'm on the internet, and I found this website that I really loved called Art of the Feminine. And the woman, Shannon Port, had a YouTube channel. And I just started watching it over and over. And I found just so much wisdom. And I did this thing that I've heard other people do. So it's not just me. But we hear something, and we go, oh, that's so science of mind, right? Yeah. And so I'm listening to her and I'm like, oh, this is so science of mind. And then I kind of caught myself and I was like, oh, let's get our historical references right. Let's think about this in a different way. This is truth unfolding in another way, right? We see things through our science of mind lens because that is what we're studying. But in the spirit of the map is not the territory, I felt like, okay, I have to readjust this. And what it was, it's really the first step of affirmative prayer, which is it's opening our consciousness to another face of the divine, right? And every time we give a treatment, we have the opportunity to open our consciousness to the divine. And if our consciousness maybe rubs up against someone else, which I think it does, then it helps bring more consciousness of the divine. So I thought, well, watching these YouTube videos is definitely a good place to start. So this woman she was delightful to watch, and so I started to see this new face of God. And one of the stories that she started to tell about how the world was created. Okay, the world was created, and she said over an overwhelming feeling of gratitude, as something in just this cosmic abyss, a deep feeling of gratitude rose up. And it sounds a little wild that the universe could be created by gratitude. But I flashed on this memory. Maybe one of the most profound moments of my life was I was at the time I would have said I was in a dark place, but I was in a growing place. Yeah, I was in a growing place. And it was a few months after my mother had passed. And I used to get up before my family. I would get up at 4 and I'd tell them, don't get up before 6. This is my time. So they were all worn. They stayed in their bed. And we lived in the Pier Bowl in San Clemente at the time. And I was sitting in my favorite chair overlooking the ocean. At a certain time of the year, you could see the moon reflect on the ocean. And I was sitting there and I had been so sad. I just really remember how sad I had been. And my dog came up and cuddled on me and tucked her little feet around me. And just out of the blue, I was overwhelmed by this profound sense of gratitude. I thought about how grateful I was for my life and for Darren, for Ella, and for my home and for my family. And it was just, the only word I have for it was just so profound. And I wasn't really going to share this part, but when Diane came up with the picture and it had the little glowing orb in it, I was like, okay, that's a sign I should share. I felt like this golden orb over my left shoulder. And I was like, okay, maybe, and I felt better. And I thought, well, maybe that's my mom. She had just passed away. Okay. Well, a few months later, I found out that I was pregnant. So sometimes I wonder, and I don't know, was that orb, was it Kate? Was that the creation of my daughter? So this idea, though, that creation comes out of gratitude is kind of anchored in me in a very real way. And so when Shannon Port started talking about this idea of gratitude, I was like, yeah, And once even more, she said the vibration of gratitude is the same as divine love. Now, I can get my handle on gratitude, but divine love just seems really lofty. But maybe I can sneak up on it on gratitude, right? Okay, so here I'm going to expose another little fact you might not have known about. I used to be an actress, and I studied for many years, and I studied Meisner programs. I've studied Mamet, and my favorite, though, was the method acting. And when I lived in Los Angeles, I studied with a man named Eric Morris. And he was big on the method and of having a technique and of knowing where you were and where you needed to get to in order to fulfill the obligations of the story. And so there was something that he used to call a litany. And we would stand there on the stage. It was an old stage in Hollywood. And he would sit on the edge with his arms crossed around his belly and just, I don't believe it. That's what he'd always say. I don't believe it. So what we would do is, one of the techniques was called, okay, so it could be a litany of. Now, in the case of drama, it could be a litany of things I don't like about you, or a litany of things the character's resentful about, in order to fulfill the emotional obligation of the piece. But I started to think you can have a litany of gratitude, right? Of just going through that. So if you were to do a litany of gratitude like you would do in Eric's class, just, how do I feel? I feel a little nervous. I'm in front of people. I feel my heart's a little warm. I see Hans smiling at me. That makes me feel good, because you're starting to include your real impulses, really where you're at. And then I'd start to, I see Lynn, hi. And so I keep talking, and I'm going back to being nervous again. My litany of gratitude is, I'm so grateful that you're all here. And I'm grateful that we have a place to come to. And I'm so grateful that even when things are bouncy, we have somebody to share with and someone who will think about us, and someone who will pray for us and know the truth for us. And you start to build your gratitude, and you start to kind of get on a roll with it, and it starts to feel really good. And so one thing I've learned through this method acting is that, they would say, play your instrument. And I know that I can change my emotions from my thoughts. I know that I can, with the technique of selective emphasis on the things that I love and the things that I'm grateful for, I can rouse up an emotional response. It might take a little bit. It might take a little commitment. It might take a little practice, a little surrender. But I can be in charge of my emotions. And therefore, I can reach that divine love of creation. And as I listened to Shannon, I love the way that she put things. I love that it was something that I could reach. And the idea that we create through gratitude, again, it tied back again with our prayer, our affirmation. We have the fourth step of gratitude. Now, the second step in our prayer is our unification. And what I learned from Shannon Port described our breath as where spirit and body meet. And it when we say prayers, sometimes I've heard the animating force being described as a way to describe spirit or God or the I am that I am. And so when we breathe, we're taking in spirit. We're locating God within ourselves. It's where spirit and matter meet. So we're only one breath away from being in touch with our divine self. Just one breath away. And as we breathe, how we think. So, let's see, what is it about? So the other thing that I wanted to share that I kind of, symbolism. We talk a lot about the subconscious, which is in that divine feminine realm, that dark subconscious where we don't know what's in it. And we describe it with our teaching symbol, our circle and the V coming through. And I believe that it touches us on another level. It takes us from a really mental place where when we're looking at paintings, when we're looking at art, the symbolism, it affects us on another level. And I'm currently in a class right now called Practical Mysticism with Patty Mercado. And we talk about where our soul is, and where is this eternal I, this part of me that's eternal, that part of me that I pray from, the part of me where I know truth. And the description of where that is, well, we know it's not out here. Out here, it's an object. But who is that in here that's looking out and seeing all of you? That's been here the whole time. And so I came up with my own symbol, and of course it's not my own symbol. But I just kept thinking of this image and of, see, it doesn't matter where you where you place it, because you're in the center, and right, the world's moving around, but this is your center core where you're looking out from everything. So when I need to remember that all the power that ever was or ever will be is here now, it's when I'm in the center. I'm not on the outside getting caught up in these transient facts. They're transient facts. It's the weather. All of this changes, but this is where I know truth. This is the truth of my being, and this is who I see when I look at you. All of this is a work in progress, stuff that got created, and it's past. This is where we create. This is what the next moment is coming from. So being in that moment of we stay in the hub, and this woman that I feel like is my friend is kind of divulging this wisdom to me, and I'm so appreciative of it. I really I love learning about it more. And so another thing that I've learned is that when I'm doing my gratitudes, the more specific that I can get, the more emotions are tied to it. If I can pick out a sensory thing, if I can pick out a voice or a moment, I can really hone in on my gratitude. And I know sometimes people have a hard time finding things to be grateful for. And just being grateful for life is just fine. Big thing. Being alive. Getting to be on earth right now. Getting to be with all the people that we get to be with. And we get to come here and discuss these ideas. That we're free to do this. That we have this loving community cheering us on as we do this. You know, reminding us that this too will pass, this moment, but we'll be here, you'll be here, you'll be here, you'll be here, and you'll be here, because we're eternal, and we're getting to be a part of this, and we're having the great privilege of witnessing life unfold. And I don't know if that's entirely feminine, but I do know that, of course, the masculine and feminine is held within each and every one of us. And ultimately, as receptacles of spirit, we're all feminine. And I think the only reason all of us are here tonight is that there's a desire in us to become a greater container for spirit. That's all.